and welcome back to my channel. So I'm just going to carry on going over your comments from the videos I've done on Empire of Normality by Robert Chapman. So we're now on to your comments from the video part 7. So one of you says, the neurodiversity movement's alliance with corporations pushing a focus on how productive autistic people can be in the workplace does risk creating a deserving autistic versus undeserving autistic binary, which could play into eugenics style thinking. Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good point. Next one of you says, actually, autism was spotted earlier than World War II by a Soviet psychiatrist, Sukhavira, in the 1920s. Yeah, thanks for pointing it out. Indeed, Sukhavira was one of the first psychiatrists to identify autism, but she never got hardly any of the credit. And I think she was Jewish as well. So maybe, you know, her name could be resurrected, I think. So now on to video part 8. One of you says, any time that people deny suffering, it helps the government cut services. If autism is only a difference, then help isn't needed. Yes, and that's one of the big issues around, I find, sanitising autism, is that we are just not, it's just not responsible, because it does have real world repercussions. That's a good point. Another one of you says, I think with both the anti-psychiatry movement and the neurodiversity movement, what started as very valuable critiques of the abuses of psychiatry and the medical model rapidly became ideological and thus lost empirical validity. The further they have drifted from reality, the more they have laid themselves open to co-option by capitalism. I think that's why these movements tend to centre the most able of neurodisabled people, because those who are undeniably impaired by intrinsic features of their conditions reveal the non-reality of a lot of the ideology. Yep, good point. So on to part 9 now. One of you says, all this talk of Lang, Satz and Foucault and anti-psychiatry more generally has reminded me of studying all this many years ago. I'd read quite a few of Lang's books even before my course, as I found the topic matter fascinating. All these people have interesting things to say, and some valid if overstated arguments. Now on to part 10. So one of you says, anti-psychiatry goes too far in challenging the abuses of psychiatry and cynically uses the deficiencies of what is arguably still a fairly new discipline to push an anti-empirical, non-realist relativism. I'd argue that psychiatry, psychology and neuroscience have actually in more recent times been working against capitalism, in that they have been providing objective explanations for disability, thus making harder the earlier argument that people had flawed moral characters, which in turn has fuelled greater demands from the population for more social security. I think this is why those politicians who serve the capitalist class now focus so heavily on the idea vast numbers of people are fraudulently claiming to be disabled. Again, the neurodiversity movement is not helping with this, because the more they promote the idea autism, ADHD, etc. are superpowers, the more they undermine the public's belief that people claiming to be disabled are indeed disabled. So yeah, they're very good points. Yeah, I do also agree with you that I think psychiatry and those who help people with mental illnesses or disabilities more generally, the system of psychiatry, because it's part of the, essentially it's part of the welfare state. So most psychiatrists work in the National Health Service. That's publicly funded health provision in the UK. In that sense, they are directly opposing the profit motive, because they're actually helping people not for profit, but because they actually want to really help to make people better. There's nothing profitable about National Health Service psychiatry. I mean, I suppose if you were to be cynical, you might say, well, by helping people to get better, you're sort of helping them to get back into the workforce and all of that. But most psychiatrists, they're not thinking about that when they're practicing psychiatry. They actually are wanting to help people, like genuinely care and help people. And that is why, under capitalism, public services such as the NHS are getting a lot of funding cuts because they're not directly profitable. And in that respect, you could say that psychiatry is opposing capitalism. That's not to deny that there aren't bad practices in psychiatry. It's not to deny that there are some bad and not good psychiatrists. I've met some. And it's also not to deny that, of course, they do work within the current system, so therefore they're going to in a sense, what I'm trying to say is that it's obviously not neutral. Like the ideology of the current system, neoliberalism, is obviously going to permeate psychiatry to some extent, and it's going to affect the practices of some psychiatrists, maybe. And I mean, I've experienced this myself, not just in psychiatry, but also in social services and other areas. I mean, and like I say, there are some really not very good practitioners out there, but those are individual practitioners. The actual psychiatry itself is generally trying to help people, that's what I want to say. So, yeah, and that's a good point as well about particularly in a climate where there is a lot of disability denial. And in the general public, who often there's a lot of anti-disability rhetoric being spun out in particularly sort of very right-wing media. Not just right-wing media, though, I'd hasten to add, in mainstream media as well, like even in the BBC and places like that. Denying the disabling features of autism is just really not helpful. So, moving on to part 11 now, we'll comment on video part 11. One of these says, some people with autism are saying that just like gay people were pathologised unfairly, that autistic people are being pathologised unfairly. It goes along with the whole idea that autism is a difference, not a disorder. I disagree. Being gay is not a disorder, but autism is. I am disabled by autism, not by being gay. Yeah, completely agree with you. I'm also gay and autistic, so I can see from both sides, and definitely me being a lesbian is not a disability. It's just, it's not a problem. I mean, obviously in society there's a lot of homophobia. I personally haven't experienced any homophobia, but then again I don't really get out much. And I guess in terms of like the problems I experience in my life, my autism is a far bigger issue for me. But yeah, I mean, obviously being gay, like, there is homophobia and things like that. But and that's societal, and that's a problem that we should be trying to overcome. But obviously there's nothing disabling in and of itself about being gay. It's, it doesn't hold someone back. It's a completely neutral difference. It's a minority difference, but it's a completely neutral difference. And obviously in the past, being gay was wrongly pathologised and described as being a mental illness, and we now, at least in the UK, know better that it's not a mental illness, that it's complete, it's a natural, completely normal variation. It doesn't cause any problems to the person with it. It doesn't cause any problems for society at large. It's completely normal variation. And in actual fact, it's actually probably more common than many people realise, because lots of people don't come out of the closet, probably because of a lot of discrimination. Even though obviously being gay will always be a minority position. It probably is the case there are far more people out there who are gay than we know about, because a lot of people just never come out of the closet, even in today's society. And being gay is obviously a spectrum, and there's lots of like variation, and obviously, you know, lots of people who are bisexual. Some people don't even realise that they're bisexual, and then later realise they are as well, so there's that. But yeah, it's not like autism, and to say it's like autism, I would say it's actually really offensive. It's completely not like autism at all. Autism is a serious medical disability requiring supports. Being gay is not. Okay, so next comment now. Like you, I don't really like the word queer, and I say that as a gay man. The reasons I don't like it are because when I was younger, I was bullied badly, and the word queer was often directed my way. As with you, my mind associates the word with weirdness, and I don't believe homosexuality is weird. I also don't like it because of its connection with queer theory, which I don't like. As for the word gay, I believe it was used to refer to homosexuality in the early 20th century, gay slang called polari, though I'm not sure how it came about. I've never heard of polari myself. It's interesting. I agree that it is a real stretch to say that a recognition of biological intrinsic impairments is the same as the Galtonian eugenicist paradigm. Eugenics also requires a belief that it is A, possible, and B, right to aim for a pure population that is absent of disability. We know that conditions such as heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's have some heritable causes, but no one suggests recognising that fact as eugenics, so I don't see why that shouldn't be the same for conditions such as OCD, autism, ADHD, etc., which also have some heritable causes. The problem only arises when we attach value judgments to conditions, judging people with them as inferior, dispensable, and so on. This can be and has been challenged, especially in the post-war period, with the rise of human rights, without the need to deny biology and the objective reality of disorders. And finally, two more comments. So one of you says, gay means good as you, a very clever play on words and emphasising equality. Again, I never knew that, but that's very interesting. Thanks for mentioning that. And final comment here, I read a book that claimed the word gay was first used by a lesbian publication called The Gay Gals, although you can't remember exactly where you read it. So that's interesting as well. My guess is there are lots of different ideas about the way the word gay came about. I'm going to have to do some research on that. But yeah, thanks for mentioning those. So I'll come back next time, and thank you for watching.